Well, we have a press conference in front of our Calgary City Hall. As you can see behind me, that's where the mayor and the head Nenshi is. That's where the councillors were supposed to be, but I guess they are not serving the Calgarians anymore. They're hiding somewhere in their basements, terrified. But here we are, and we are going to have a press conference about what happened and what's happening regarding to feeding of the poor and taking care of the people that are having a difficult time these days because of pandemic. I received a letter just a few days ago on November 26, 2020. My name is Artur Pawlowski. I am a pastor in two churches, one known as Street Church that feeds the poor. 4 times a week we are on the streets feeding the homeless for the past many years. We started to take care of the poor, the widows and the orphans in 1999, so 21 years. And we have been doing this through the entire pandemic, through the crisis. I want to point out that during the time of difficulties, that's where the church is needed the most. That's where we are needed. People are committing suicide, they are hungry, they're desperate, and they need their church to restore hope in their lives. It looks like Naheed Nenshi, the mayor of the city, with the councillors do not agree with this. They sent me a letter saying, I'll just read a portion of it. In recent months, the city has noted, while you can't not to see what we're doing, we're in front of City Hall as a protest for many years for what they have been doing to us before, illegal arrests, hundreds of summons and tickets, over 100 court cases. So we brought the church in front of the mayor's window as a protest for all to see what those evil, wicked people are doing. But anyway, they say they have noted that we have continued to hold street churches feeding the poor events at Olympic Plaza without a valid parks permit. And then they are saying that most recently on Wednesday, November the 18th, they also are saying that there are new restrictions in place and pretty much everything we're doing is against the law. We're the lawbreakers. By feeding the poor, we're breaking all kinds of bylaws and now the restrictions because of the COVID-19. It continues that the person must not engage in the following activities in a park: hosting an event with more than 10 persons, conducting a performance or performances before an audience lasting more than 30 minutes or more within a 24-hour period. I don't know where they're coming with all those crazy stuff. Using an amplification system, posting temporary signs, banners. And then they say, because of the COVID-19 restrictions, we are to social distance, we are to wear masks, 2 meters between each person, and all kinds of different things. But we are not allowed to even do that because we do not have their blessing, their permits. If we continue, we may face penalties up to $250,000. And they can use all kinds of court summons and tickets. So that's the letter. I received 3 of them. That I got it a few days ago. And then, interestingly, there was a big protest across the street at City Hall where almost 1,500 people, some say even 2,000 people came to oppose this craziness. And then on Sunday, we were here to feed the poor, like we always do. We fed the poor, we preached the gospel, we exercised our rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to do what God and the government is telling us to do and is allowing us to do. Actually, God is commanding us to take care of the poor, the widows, and the orphans. I want to read a portion of the article that was released yesterday. Kenny, that's the Premier of Alberta, asked Albertans to be responsible while protesting, but does not condemn large rallies. In other words, the Premier of this province is saying, you have your rights to go out there and protest because that's your God-given right and is protected under the Charter Rights and Freedoms. The story continues. Saturday, anti-mask protests in both Edmonton and Calgary drew crowds of hundreds. Well, it was actually more than 1,500 people. And they are going with the story that those people broke the law. The order, signed last week by Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dina Henshaw, does not prohibit protests or demonstrations. So Kenny, in a question period Monday, highlighted the legal right to demonstrate. So even the Premier of this province is saying that, yeah, those people have that right to do. And let me remind you that Saturday events and Sunday events were done as a protest to those against those unconstitutional laws. Kenny says, we ask Albertans to be responsible in their actions. Obviously, when it comes to the constitutionally protected right to protest, said Kenny. Then Henshaw was giving us new cases and all kinds of different things, saying in response to this that she already told us what we can and we cannot do. Even though she's not an elected politician, we don't pay her, we never hired her, but she is telling us what is allowed according to her and what's not. She says she published in June what we can do. Physical distancing, and for events, she says she would like them to be virtual or drive in when possible. Can you imagine the doctor, so-called, she's saying to us, if you want to protest the government, do it on Zoom chat. Or do a drive-in. Unbelievable. Then she goes on, it's important to be able to balance those rights to protest with the need to keep each other safe. It's like she cares about our safety while the middle class is being eliminated, while people are committing suicides, and people are dying because they do not receive proper care because of a fake pandemic. She goes on in saying that if we want to protest, that's all right, but let's do it on Zoom chats. NDP leader Rachel Notley said Kenny needs to call out the irresponsible behavior of demonstrators. To those people who purposely and knowingly put themselves, their families, their communities at risk this week, you owe an apology for your extreme selfishness. Unbelievable. This is a selfishness when you stand for your rights and you defend your families. She calls it selfishness because let me outline this to you. She is a socialistic communist and they hate freedoms. They hate freedoms, they love welfare, and they want you to just get the check in mail so you will not be able to die, but you will not be able to live. That's communism and socialism. And then she goes on, instead of condemning those who attended, can you ask Albertans to be responsible? We would ask people not to engage in large-scale protests. If they do so, please wear masks, Kenny said, adding enforcement of any measures under the order of Henshaw signed, it is up to the police, not the government. Justice Minister Madhu said, the Minister of Justice does not direct law enforcement to issue tickets. Notley said Kenny's government was creating profound confusion. That's how socialists are calling people when they exercise their rights. They call this a confusion, a profound confusion over the applicability of the law. You see, the truth is socialism brings confusion and lawlessness. The right to protest put them in check. When people take to the streets, when they have the right to protest, then those politicians, those crooks, are afraid. And another article, so here, Premier Kenny is saying, I stand with the protesters, they have the right to protest. It's fundamentally a guarantee right under the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but the opposition, the socialists, communists, NDP, and so-called Dr. Hinshaw opposes that because they hate freedoms. They hate when people are thinking for themselves. Another article I want to point out is from Edmonton Journal, and the title is, As Kenny's popularity sinks, he gives anti-maskers green light to protests. See, they want to scare the premier, saying that if you stand for the people and the people's rights, you're not going to be re-elected. That's a pure manipulation by the mainstream propaganda machinery. And they're going on that people came and gathered even though they were not allowed to. And it's the premier's fault, pretty much, for the cases rising. They say hundreds gathered again. They are afraid to say that over 1,500 people showed up because people are rising up. So they can't say dozens anymore. So they will say hundreds, but it was almost 2,000. Asked by NDP leader Rachel Notley about his response, Kenny said in the legislature, obviously when it comes to the constitutionality, protected right to protest and enforcement of those measures, it's a matter of the police to determine, not for the politicians. He's saying the law is in place and we have the highest law under the Charter. Kenny suggests that enforcing his own mandatory COVID-19 rules would be political interference. And that's actually true. He would become a dictator, a tyrant, saying, I don't care about people's rights anymore, even though it's the highest law in the country, I'll do what I think is right. He would, in fact, become a dictator. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms ensures freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of association, and freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression. Is also protecting our freedom of religion. Then they are going on this wagon on criticizing Kenny for standing up for people's rights. They call it evil and wrong. Like I said before, they don't like when people are rising up and defending themselves. And any politician that dares to do that, it becomes the enemy of the propaganda media. The government stands by the people right now in Alberta, but the media are saying the government has all the power it needs to enforce rules without trying to hide behind the Constitution. Well, that's the problem. That's the problem with the media. They don't stand for any rights of the people. And they want the government to enforce a law that actually breaks the law. So this morning, just before we went to the streets, I had a knock at my door while we were preparing ourselves to go to the streets to feed the poor, and 3 armed officers, I call them Gestapo, showed up at my door in my house. Again, the tactics of the Nazis, the tactics of the communists, was not to give me a ticket during the rally, the protest we had on Sunday. They had to come to my house to intimidate my wife and my children, for the whole neighborhood to see, behold, here is a villain living as your neighbor. He's a lawbreaker, he's a troublemaker. Be careful, watch. And they came with summons and tickets. So I want to read them to you. When I told them that they are not welcome, that they have to go out of my property and then I'll talk to them, I didn't want them to intimidate my wife and my children. they threw the documents at my feet like to a dog. Here it is. She threw it, the officer, the documents on the floor. We received 5 tickets and a summons. The first one, failed to wear covering were required. Well, first of all, you're not required to wear a covering over your face outdoors, to start with. Second, I was an officiating minister, a clergyman, doing my duty as a clergyman during that rally. That's my job. My job is to preach the gospel, preach to the people, talk to the people, pray with the people, and I'm not required under this bylaw to wear a mask while I am officiating, doing my duty as a clergyman. But you see, that's the problem with the communists and the fascists. They do not care about the law and order. They don't care about their own laws. Second ticket was to my brother David Pawlowski for the same offense. The next one was individual contravene order of medical officer of health. $1,200 ticket. The next one, prohibited activity without permit. Since when I need a permit to protest? Especially from those devils across the street. I don't need their permission to protest. I don't need Naheed Nensh's permission to oppose his lies, his manipulations, his cheating and destroying. That's why I have that right to protest. But they say, what we've done on Sunday, the protest was against the law, and the summons was given to me to appear before the courts. Prohibited activity without the permits. Just like during the communism and the fascism, you needed a permit, you needed the blessing of the dictators, of the tyrants, to say and do anything. And then the fifth one is individual contravening order of medical officer of health. Another $1,200. 5 summons tickets this morning. So here is what I intend to do. I believe that those tickets this thing that they threw at my feet like to a dog are unconstitutional, illegal, and therefore no valid. And I will take my fight to the court. So I want to ask you, I'm going to start doing a fundraiser to hire the best lawyers in the country to fight this tyranny, to fight those devils, and to take it to court. And afterwards, to sue them for damages. To sue them, to go after them. I want us to go after them now. They have come after us. They have broken numerous laws. I say let's go after them. So that's the plan, friends. I have 3 more friends here that have received the same ordeal. I want to ask Derek if you can come. Derek Reimer, for feeding the homeless, received a summons and a ticket of $1,200 as well. So he's going to tell you the story and what he intends to do with that.
Hi everybody, Derek Reimer here with Mission 7, and what we do is we're a street ministry. The Lord has called us to the streets to preach the gospel, to pray for the sick, and to feed the poor, and that's exactly what we do. You know, it's interesting because last spring, during the first lockdown, the hype of COVID, somebody said to me, because I'm going to continue to keep going out there. The people are out there, I'm going to keep going. That's my call, that's my conviction. Why should that change? Because the narrative has changed. So someone said to me, what are you, rebelling against the government? I said, no, I'll be rebelling against God if I don't continue doing what He's asked me and called me to do. So we continued to do it. I ended up receiving 2 tickets, one for not operating with a permit. Even though I applied for a permit to the city came down. The woman I was dealing with, Nicole, she came down with 2 police officers, and we were right in front of McDonald's, and they said, you know what? You can't be here. Can you just move it onto the street and off the avenue? And I thought to myself, well, they're not saying no, so I can work with this. I said, let me finish feeding these people, and we'll move on to the street. So we did that. We had this verbal permit that we can go on the street. Cops never bothered us after that. Praise God for that. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to even bother them anymore with this permit. They said that. I applied for it. They didn't give it to me. So we continued. Anyways, I got a permit violation. No price on it, just show up to court. That got thrown out because they made the date for Saturday, which I thought was kind of odd. I showed up anyways, and then I went on Monday, and that was thrown out. So praise God for that. We continued on. They gave me a social distancing ticket for $1,200. You know, there was like an army of police officers out there. It was virtually a ghost town. Yeah, my ministry's out there, and there's, you know, a bunch of street people that are hungry that we're serving, and we have like 5 cop cars out there like we're some crazy criminals feeding the homeless. It's just outrageous. It's egregious. So they come over and they give me a ticket for $1,200. So, you know, hey, praise God that Rebel News has supplied a lawyer, and this is going to trial next year in April. And you know what? As Art read out in the Constitution what our rights are, and even during the time of a crisis, the Constitution has to be upheld. We have to be able to have our rights, because the line here become like from a democracy into a dictatorship is getting too close. Like, who's able then to deem that? And then all of our rights are out the window because there's a little virus in town, and it's affecting mostly and predominantly just like the elderly, if anybody, and they're killing this economy, and people are dying from suicide and addictions because people aren't able to handle this, and the stress of these lockdowns, and even financial stress. There's all kinds, there's an abundance, and we have that solution. We have that antidote with Christ in us, the hope of glory, and that's what we're preaching, that's what we're praying, that's what we're witnessing to people. More than just feeding the homeless, it's that spiritual nutrition that people are craving for, and people need to fellowship, people need to come together. The Zoom chats, it isn't adequate, it's not a good substitute, that's not enough. And we need to keep rising up. We need to keep standing up for our rights. And even more than that here with our rights and these laws, our God-given rights and what the Lord's calling us to and what's He's saying to you. And now's the time to stand up. Now's the time to keep marching on together in unity. And for me and my ministry, we will keep serving the Lord. We will keep doing outreaches. You know, we'll keep doing the joint outreach with Street Church here Friday at 5 o'clock. We'll still be in our corner at Stephen Avenue and 2nd Street every Saturday at 1:30, and supporting our brothers and sisters at Street Church right here on the hill at this corner Sundays at 1:30. We need to do this. It's our responsibility. It's our calling. And we're going to stand firm, and we're going to stand fiery. And please join us. God bless you guys.
Hello there, my name's Larry Heather. I am do the music at Street Church, lead the music in the indoor service, and I sing out in the streets. Love to sing the gospel. And I've also been singing parody songs against the COVID scamdemic, the plandemic, whatever you want to call it, on the mask bylaw, the so-called face covering bylaw for the city of Calgary came in on August 1st, 2020. 4 days later, I went to my Scotia Bank on McLeod Trail and wanted to deposit a check in person. And the manager, the assistant manager says, do you have an exemption? And I said at that time, no, I'm not asking for an exemption. I think it's wrong on principle to wear a mask. And then the manager came over and said, well, you really need to put on a mask. I can show you how to do online deposits, you know. I can show you how you don't have to come in. I said, it's my home bank. It's my right to be here in the line. You have no right to say that I can't be served. He stared all the people around me, wouldn't serve me. And I said, you're going to have to call the police because you don't have the authority to issue a command to me that I have to wear a mask. You don't have that authority. So they did call the police, and the police came in and called me outside, and I talked with them, and I said, this is my principle. I'm not claiming an exemption at this time. I'm fighting for the principle of freedom, that you shouldn't have to put a muzzle on your face to deposit your money in a bank. And so they said, do you want a ticket? We're going to give you a ticket. And I said, that would be fine because I'm going to take this into court. So my ticket will be in court March 24th, Provincial Traffic Court. My lawyer, which is a top constitutional lawyer, we did fundraise a retainer for it, will graduate it up from Provincial Traffic Court up to the Court of Queens, where we'll challenge this on charter rights, this restrictive mask face covering bylaw. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you. We just want to let you know there's people fighting this. We're not letting this go. We're going to get experts in on face coverings, on medical issues, on personal protective equipment, and how a mask should be fitted, what the condition of the person should be, etc. Bringing experts into court and getting their testimony down in the court record and letting the judge know we have good reason why this mask bylaw is an infringement not only of our charter rights but an endangerment to our health. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, we stand on guard for thee. Well, what happened today morning as we were getting ready to feed the homeless, you heard the story, you heard what Pastor Art was saying here. They would throw us the ticket. He politely asked I think he was polite enough. He asked the officers to leave the private property and then away from his kids and his wife. And then he wanted to talk to them outside his gate. They wanted to enter, but I don't think it would be right. I mean, when the police obeys the laws of the land and obeys the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we are all for you. But when you start to break the very laws you sworn to uphold, that becomes a problem. We cannot break bread together in that case. You know, in a time where now the suicide rate in Canada is not in the hundreds but 1,000 mark and up, where the ODing is in the thousands right now. People are dying every single day. Now you add to it alcoholism, you add to it drugs that now are infiltrating our cities, and they're not anymore marijuana, they're not anymore psychedelics and other chemical drugs, but now it's heroin and fentanyl and very deadly and highly potent drugs that are killing people like flies. This is the pandemic, where the shelters are so overwhelmed. In one way, you hear the news saying they're asking for help, but in the other hand, they want to destroy ministries that want to give that help. That's schizophrenia. Okay? The lies and the truth, the gap is getting bigger and bigger, and more Canadian people are seeing it. And not only Canadian, but the nations are waking up. Look at Europe. The question is, what are we going to do about this? History has come to this point. And the question is, oh Canadians, will you fight for your rights? Will you fight for your families? Will you fight for the future of your children? Or are you going to allow some people with certain agendas to take everything from you. They're already talking that they're building concentration camps. Listen, concentration camps. That's unbelievable. This is a nightmare. And it's up to you to resist this or submit and lose everything. Because now they're coming for law-abiding citizens. They're going against the churches, religious gatherings, while their organizations and the Walmarts and the big Costco's and other organizations are open. We see the double standard. How come in one place there can be thousands of people, like Costco, and then in the other hand they tell you you cannot even see your own families? Are you serious? That is insanity. You've crossed the line. You crossed the line that should never be crossed. And more Canadian people see this. And you're awakening a roaring lion. A giant that you won't stop. Canadian people, everything that has happened in your life, all the experiences, everything that happened has led you to this point. I pray that you will arise and that you will fight this injustice. Because you know who's right? Those who uphold the laws of the land. Not those who put certain bylaws that are unconstitutional, that are playing the dictators, that are walking with their boots inside your houses. They already have destroying your small businesses, your bigger businesses, your medium businesses. The middle class, they're after you. Because when they come after you, the gap between the elites and the poor will be so vast that you won't have a saying whatsoever. Now it is time to wake up. Now it is time to support people that fight for you in any way you can. That's our plea with you. I hope that you will unite the clans, that you will unite, and let's fight this injustice. Bless you all.